In the heart of the Igbo land, where the sun kissed the earth with warmth and the rivers sang songs of life, there was a village called Umuokwe. It was a peaceful place, surrounded by lush green forests, whispering palm trees, and the laughter of children. However, one woman in the village cast a shadow on its happiness: Nneoma, the stern widow who lived in a solitary hut at the edge of the forest. Nneoma's story was as old as the village itself. Her husband had passed away many years ago, and she had no children of her own. Her face was like the cracked bark of an old iroko tree, her eyes sharp as an eagle's, and her voice thunderous like the rains in August. Children whispered about her, saying she could see through walls and hear even the quietest footsteps. Her compound, surrounded by a thorny fence, was a place no child dared to step into. What set Nneoma apart was her unrelenting strictness. If a child plucked an unripe mango from a tree, Nneoma would appear out of nowhere and make the child kneel in the sun, holding the mango above their head until they cried for mercy. If she caught anyone playing too close to her compound, she would march them home and report them to their parents, demanding a punishment. Some claimed she even had a whip made from the tail of a lion, though no one had actually seen it. The parents in Umuokwe secretly admired her. "Nneoma is only doing what we should be doing," they would say, nodding approvingly. These children of today have no fear. But the children, oh, they hated her. To them, she was a witch, a monster, the woman who punished every child in the village. One day, something peculiar happened. Ikon, an adventurous boy with a head full of mischief, decided to test the tales about Nneoma. He was only 10 but was known for his boldness. "How can one old woman frighten the whole village?" he asked his friends as they gathered under the ancient Udala tree. "She's just a human being like us. Let's prove she's not as scary as everyone thinks." The other children gasped. "Ikon, don't do it." Amaka, the eldest of the group, warned. "You don't know what she's capable of." But Ikon was determined. That afternoon, as the sun began its descent, he tiptoed toward Nneoma's compound. His friends watched from a distance, their hearts pounding. Ikon climbed the thorny fence, careful not to tear his clothes, and landed inside her compound. The yard was eerily quiet, except for the occasional rustle of the wind. He looked around and spotted a small clay pot sitting on a stool by her doorstep. Curiosity got the better of him. He picked up the pot, turned it over, and peered inside. To his surprise, it was empty. But as he tried to put it back, his hand slipped, and the pot shattered on the ground. A loud caw broke the silence as a black crow flew out from the roof. Ikon's heart raced. Before he could climb back over the fence, the door to Nneoma's hut creaked open. There she stood, her piercing eyes glowing like embers. "Ikon," she said, her voice low but powerful, "you dare enter my compound?" Ikon froze. How did she know his name? His legs felt like they were glued to the ground. Nneoma stepped closer, her shadow stretching across the yard. She didn't shout or wave her hands. Instead, she simply pointed to the broken pot. "Fix it," she commanded. But it's broken," Ikon stammered. "Fix it," she repeated, her voice as cold as the Harmattan wind. Ikon tried to gather the shards, but they pricked his fingers. Tears welled up in his eyes. Suddenly, Nneoma raised her hands and clapped 3 times. The shards flew out of his hands, piecing themselves back together until the pot was whole again. Ikon's mouth fell open in shock. "Leave my compound," Nneoma said, her eyes never leaving his. "And tell your friends what you saw. Let it be a warning." Ikon didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled over the fence and ran as fast as his legs could carry him. When he reached his friends, he was breathless and shaking. She has powers," he managed to say. She fixed the pot with magic." The children's eyes widened in fear. From that day, no one dared to go near Nneoma's compound again. But Nneoma's story didn't end there. The rains came and went, and life in Umuokwe continued. Yet, something began to change in the village. Fruits fell from trees and rotted before they could be eaten. The river, once clear and sparkling, turned murky. Chickens stopped laying eggs, and goats refused to graze. The villagers grew worried. "It is a curse," the elders whispered. "The gods are angry." One evening, the village gathered in the square to seek answers. The chief priest, a wise old man named Izudo, sat on a wooden stool, his face grave. He closed his eyes and spoke to the spirits. After a long silence, he opened his eyes and said, "The balance has been disturbed. Someone has wronged the guardian of the village." "Who is the guardian?" the people asked. Izudo's eyes scanned the crowd. "She lives at the edge of the forest. Her name is Nneoma." Gasps filled the air. The villagers couldn't believe it. Nneoma, the woman who punished their children, was the guardian of the village. The chief priest continued, "Someone trespassed on her sacred ground and broke her trust. Until amends are made, the village will suffer." All eyes turned to Ikon. The boy lowered his head, guilt written all over his face. "It was me," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "I broke her pot." The villagers murmured among themselves. The chief priest raised his hand for silence. "Ikon," he said, "you must go to Nneoma and ask for her forgiveness." Tears streamed down Ikon's face as he nodded. He didn't want to go alone, so the villagers decided to accompany him. Together, they walked to Nneoma's compound, carrying gifts of yams, palm oil, and a white goat. When they arrived, Nneoma was sitting outside, her expression unreadable. The villagers bowed before her, and Ikon stepped forward. "Nneoma," he said, his voice trembling, "I am sorry for breaking your pot and trespassing on your compound. Please forgive me." Nneoma looked at him for a long time before speaking. "Do you now understand the importance of respect?" she asked. Ikon nodded. "Yes, I do." Nneoma's gaze softened. She stood and placed a hand on Ikon's shoulder. "I forgive you," she said. "But remember, respect is not just for me. It is for everyone and everything around you, the people, the land, the trees, and the rivers. Only then can the village thrive." As she spoke, the air seemed to lighten. The murky river began to clear, and the fruits on the trees stopped rotting. The villagers cheered, their hearts filled with gratitude. From that day on, the children of Umuokwe learned to respect not only Nneoma but also the world around them. And though Nneoma remained strict, she also became a teacher, sharing her wisdom with those who sought it. The village flourished once more, and Nneoma's name was spoken with reverence and pride. Years later, when Ikon had grown into a man, he often visited Nneoma to sit by her side and listen to her stories. She became like a grandmother to him, teaching him the ways of the world. And when Nneoma eventually passed away, the entire village mourned her. They built a small shrine in her honor at the edge of the forest, where children would leave offerings of flowers and fruits. The story of the woman who punished every child in the village became a tale told around the fires at night, a reminder that even the strictest lessons come from a place of love and that respect is the foundation of harmony. And so, Nneoma's spirit lived on, watching over Umuokwe, her beloved village, forever. For more videos like this one, consider subscribing and liking this video. Thank you.